Hey guys, Montel here, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Of course, I'm your host, Montel Williams, and today we have an incredibly inspirational, inspiring guest who has turned her battles into a powerful voice for change. Joining us is Alison Myrden. She's a retired corrections officer, drug law enforcement activist, MS warrior, and a relentless advocate for medical cannabis in Canada. Alison, thank you so much for being a part of the show today.
Thank you, Montel, so much.
Absolutely. Let's go back to the beginning, where you began your career in law enforcement as a corrections officer in 1988. Can you share with us, with our listeners, what led you to this career path and this change, and what experiences were like during those years?
You bet. Actually, when I was a corrections officer, I worked with young offenders here in Canada. And I went to court sometimes 5 days a week. And each time I was in court with a young offender, it was for charges usually related to drugs in some way. So what I would find was that I would often speak up in court and say to the judge that, Your Honor, drugs are a health issue and do not belong in a court of law. And down would go his gavel, slam down, and then everybody in court would wink at me and smile and thumbs up. And I'd just say, sorry, and sit down as he threatened to throw me out of the courtroom. But I did that, Montel, for years, and that's what started my activism. I could not see young people going to court, going to jail for something that I did when I got home from work every day that, again, was illegal at the time.
And, these are young people who are just experimenting with drugs, particularly cannabis. And elaborate on, that and how that shaped your views on the entire war on drugs.
I always knew that the drug war was wrong because I've been battling multiple sclerosis. I was diagnosed at age 28, and I was diagnosed back to under the age of 10 years old. So I knew all my life that something really funky was up, and that I knew that something had to be done about it. So I actually looked into things like cannabis when I was a teenager, and I found that when I consumed cannabis, I honestly felt better every single time. So I followed that path, and I decided, again, as I was getting more into my progression of multiple sclerosis, it ended up the doctors gave me more medication and more opioids and more narcotics and things. And I decided to substitute natural things for what I felt were pharmaceuticals and doing me damage.
And one of your early on, I guess, one of your most severe symptoms was trigeminal neuralgia, correct?
Yeah, and it still is, Montel, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I'm still fighting for pain relief from that.
And you've used multiple different alternative therapies for it, including psilocybin, is that right?
Yes, actually, I've been pursuing the psilocybin avenue. Originally, when I was in law enforcement, I actually fought for all drugs to be legalized and regulated and taken off the street, out of the hands of our children and away from the criminals once and for all. So what it decided, I spoke with a law enforcement agency in the US called LEAP. And what it decided was, like them, we were actually on the same line of thinking that drugs had to be taken away from this issue of courts and jails and had to be turned into something that medically we could consume without issue. So again, that's why I pursued the issue of cannabis to begin with, and then psilocybin again in the background for the last 30 years, but psilocybin, yes.
But let's back up here. 92 was when you were diagnosed, 93 when you started looking into medical cannabis, right, as a patient in Canada. What was it like back then in 93? You were just saying you're a law enforcement officer, you got judges threatening to throw you out of their courtrooms because of your views, understanding that there was a medical efficacy to cannabis. What was it like, though, when you tried to access cannabis back in 92, 93?
It was next to impossible, Montel. I'm a pretty vocal person. I'm a pretty extroverted personality on the whole. So I wrote to my member of parliament because I knew, again, that it wasn't going to be just my issue. So when I wrote to my member of parliament, I begged to be put in a cannabis trial here in Canada, and I was told that there wasn't one. So it turned out that the Minister of Health at the time in Canada, Alan Rock, had written back to myself and my mother and my doctor, as we had all written, And he had said again, sorry, but you're out of luck. So again, I wrote to my member of parliament and said, this is ridiculous. Why would people like me who have health issues be not allowed to consume substances that are more benign than some of the drugs that you're giving me?
And what was the response?
Immediately, again, the member of parliament said, we are going to court for this and we're going to go to the country. And we started what's called we ended up opening up the medical cannabis program in Canada, and one of the first 20 patients to get licensed in this country. And now there are over 180,000 of us.
And what year was that when that happened, when it finally opened up?
That was in 1994 when I got my first medical license for cannabis.
And then jump forward. Now you have gone on to advocate for psilocybin for medical purposes, correct?
Yes, I have. I've been finding, again, I've been using psilocybin in small amounts for over 30 years through my neurologist. And it turned out accidentally in 2017, I actually was over at a friend's place and consumed a magic mushroom that was 5 grams, a big magic mushroom, and ate the whole thing because the pain in my face was so violent, Montel, that I ended up within 20 minutes having relief for 5.5 hours, and I couldn't believe it. So I was at my doctor's the next day, just like I did for cannabis, saying, I found my medicine.
And, have you found other natural remedies that you found helpful for your condition?
Certainly, again, I was given heroin and cocaine when I was young for a number of years, off and on medically through doctors. And I found, again, I use hydromorphone as well. But this trigeminal neuralgia pain is so unusual, and I have it what they call bilaterally, which is both sides of my face and head. And I have
Which is extremely unusual.
Yes, and I have it 24 hours a day. So my great-grandfather had it 100 years ago, and they treated him with liquid gold injections in his face. And I thought, not going to happen to me. So I would find something a little easier.
Sure. And again, though, have you found other alternative medicines that have helped you at all?
Well, again, heroin, cocaine, LSD, psilocybin, raw opium. Again, there are a number of things that are, again, what are considered illegal substances that people like me, again, turn to as medicine because we don't want all the opioids that we're given.
And in Canada now, is psilocybin legal for medicinal use?
Only through Health Canada, through what's called a special access program license. That's the only way.
Got it. And cannabis, though, cannabis is legal, not rare, adult use in Canada, right? Do they also have a medical program?
Yes, they have what's called the ACMPR, which I can't even remember what it stands for right now. Access to cannabis as medicine for medical purpose. And the ACMPR, again, is the only available way, which I have not been involved in for almost 3 years. So as a medical patient, that's not conducive to people like me at all.
So you access your cannabis through the recreational market?
I do. I actually have friends, Montel. I'm a pretty busy activist, and I have friends from around the world and across the country who send me medicine in the mail. So luckily, I've been able to survive the last number of decades because of this. So
That's great. And, now Canada's medical or recreational cannabis program is literally an example for the rest of the world. A lot of people have been trying to follow that. Is it going to expand? Do you see an opportunity for you to get back into that program?
I'm really hopeful, Montel, because I'm an activist. I'm really hopeful, and I'm hopeful that maybe we can make enough noise to make that happen. But at the same time, I really don't hold out a lot of faith in our government, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to meld us into the recreational cannabis right now. And the recreational cannabis program in Canada is swallowing up medical patients like me and everybody involved in this program. Again, there were only 180,000 of us in Canada, and I was thinking by now there'd be a lot more. So,
well, can you tell me a little bit about that, the advocacy work that you've been doing and some of the milestones that you've been able to achieve?
Again, I've been with my partner, Gary Lynch, for 36 years, and the two of us have fought every single step of the way. We've been all across Canada and back again, trying to make, again, our voices heard in drug law reform. Montel, again, it's not just cannabis for me, and it never has been. It's always been about all drugs because since I've been young, doctors have given me heroin and cocaine and things. And I knew when I was young that I didn't want those drugs. I wanted something different, maybe something that didn't have as many side effects in that respect. So what it did was drove my activism in that direction. And also not just medically, but it ended up taking a turn to, again, encompass every single substance out there that's illicit and that's on the street. Because what we have to do is get those off the street in Montel, most definitely right away.
But now talk to people about some of the biggest misconceptions the public has when it comes to medical cannabis, and also some of these other substances you're talking about when it comes to chronic pain. It does help for chronic pain for some people, correct?
You know what? They're finding that is true, Montel, and they're finding, again, medical cannabis. A lot of people think, it's addictive, which it's not. Your personality is either an addictive personality or you're not an addictive personality, and that's the way that works. But ultimately, again, cannabis will not lead you to further drugs. My first lawyer, Professor Alan Young, used to, when we talked all the time and did interviews, he used to always say that milk was a gateway drug, because ultimately, again, that's what we start with. So people have to realize, again, that starting with cannabis is not the problem here. Again, and cannabis is good medicine and does, again, I can tell you, again, a quick story. When I was younger, I went to the computer and I found GW Pharmaceuticals and Jeffrey Guy, and I had met him in person with Raphael Mechalom and some of these other big names, Dr. Ethan Rusin in medical cannabis. And what I had done was I had asked them then, would this harm me? Because I was more scared about whether or not it would hurt me at that age. And they said, no, not at all. They said, read this. And I printed out a line from GW Pharmaceuticals' website when they were around that said, not only that marijuana is good for you, but that marijuana halts the progression of MS. And I took that study to my doctors 30 years ago, Montel, and I've been fighting on that ever since.
Well, I know you're aware of the fact that I also am a MS survivor, and I also sat down with Raphael Mechoulam in his office in Israel back in 2010, 11,
Yes.
and had in-depth conversations with him. And it has been known that, cannabis does impact MS in many ways. I've been a cannabis user, almost daily for almost 40 years now, and going on 40 years now. And it has, of course, all of us who have MS are different. I also had trigeminal neuralgia for quite a long period of time. Mine has subsided. I only had it on one side. Don't deal with that pain anymore. And I understand what it is you go through. And for people who don't understand, let's do a little bit, let's see if we can change that perception. Can you speak a little bit about how education plays in changing public perceptions about drug use and its impact on drug policy reform? Because, education is really, I think, the key. Most people don't understand how a simple plant like this can have such profound impact, but help them understand that, Alison.
It is. It's not just the cannabinoids themselves. It's actually, again, with cannabis, is synergistic effect. So I also use pharmaceuticals, and I still will never be away from pharmaceuticals. But cannabis ultimately, again, Montel, has so many good things in it, from CBD to CBN to CBG to THC to THCA. All of these.
CBC, yeah. We're starting to find out, and I think what people don't understand is there's probably about 200 different constituent parts to the cannabis plant that are viable as medicinal agents.
Yes. And, again, that's very important that people understand that, because especially as medicine, Montel, you and I are both battling multiple sclerosis. I, like you, have said all my life, though, that I don't really have MS. I am a mess, MESS, because it didn't make sense to me when I was younger that I was having all these issues when my friends were not. So what I did growing up was I educated my friends not only to cannabis as medicine, but as psilocybin came, into my life, then I also introduced that to my friends as well. And at every party and every gathering and everywhere I went, I, like you, would educate everybody on these things and show them. Within minutes, I would stop banging my face from this horrible pain that I have. And people started telling me that. I didn't even realize that, Montel, until decades ago, again, when I started to continuously use these substances. So
Yeah,
that,
I'm doing it right now, but I remember and recall, periods of time where I used to constantly be touching my face, trying to see if I can get this to stop. You know what I mean?
I am
And
all the time.
didn't even recognize it in myself. And people would say, well, you haven't touched your face in a while. And they didn't know that I had gone outside and taken a hit. You know what I mean? So, there must be some of those memorable moments in your past that, or breakthroughs that your advocacy work to help reinforce the commitment to the cause, right? Talk about some of those breakthrough moments that have happened in your past where you recognize that, hey, you know what? This is really something that works way better than what I'm being prescribed.
You bet. I remember 30 years ago, or 25 years ago, maybe, I was in Parliament in Ottawa and I was with a lawyer named Eugene Oscapella. And I was consuming as much cannabis and cannabis oil and everything I could find to try and stop this horrible pain before I spoke to all the parliamentarians in the parliamentary press room. So I did this for years. I went back and forth and spoke in the parliamentary press room. And this particular time started it because Eugene again had mentioned to me that after he had seen me that day, he had gone back to his classroom. He was a educator, professor at Carleton University in Ottawa. And he had gone back to his classroom and he told them all about me, just the one class, and said that I consumed so much cannabis that it actually just shocked him that I was so stable and so able to speak the way I did in Parliament after I'd consumed that much medicine. And I said to him, that's the thing again, Eugene. People have to see us to understand us. I have smoked all day today again, and I'm sure I'm tripping up somewhere. But again, I have a violent pain in my face right now, and I'm doing pretty okay because I've smoked.
Please don't stop yourself from medicating while we're talking. You go right ahead, do your thing, because I do understand the need that, most people don't understand. It's like, when you consume it edibly or or you eat an edible, it probably takes 10 to 15 minutes for you to see or get relief. When you actually consume, via smoke or vaping, it's almost an immediate
It
sensation release, correct?
Yeah, it's within minutes. Not even that long, Montel. Thank you so much, my friend.
Oh, absolutely. I do understand. And, I want the public to understand also. I mean, you've been advocating now yourself for 30 years, 20 years. Where do you see this going in the future? Do you finally see us at a point where people will start to understand that medication is medication and those of us who can get relief from certain forms of medication should be allowed to have it? Do you think that's going to change and people will finally get it?
I know for a fact they will, Montel, because people like you are speaking out as well. And I've been speaking out again for a long time, just like you. And I've been doing my little thing here in Canada. But I'll tell you, you have had an international presence everywhere, my friend. And because of you and because of that, it's making my story a little bit easier. So I thank you again for everything you're doing and all the courage it took for you to do that, my friend.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And, tell me a little bit about the state of cannabis in Canada. What's going on there right now?
Well, right now, again, there's a lot going on. We actually have some issue with cannabis in the Cannabis Act in Canada, and people are they're able to write in and talk about any issues or problems that are going on. And one problem that we have, first of all, as patients, it's a different thing, but this is just the Cannabis Act for everybody in Canada who's of age. And ultimately, again, they have a problem with the number of milligrams per edibles. So that's a big issue in Canada because we're limited to 10 milligrams per edible, which again, for someone like me, whose prescription or authorized amount is 150 grams a day, that would be a lot of money.
Right. A lot of money, and a lot of the products that are edible products have so much sugar in them. Be a lot of sugar too, right?
You bet. You bet.
Do you does Canada talk to me a little bit about you have a adult use law and you also have a medical law? Are you allowed in through medical to grow your own?
We are actually, we're entitled to grow our own, and we have a number of plants. I think it's been limited now to around 25 grams a day per medical patient, and that's the average. But I do know that, again, years ago, Montel, I could grow 1,000 plants and I could have it in every way, shape, and form possible, which is exactly what I needed because I constantly consume cannabis when I have it. I eat it in food and I drink it in tea. There's everything from juicing it. We've done everything, Montel. And smoking it is only one route of administration. So
Absolutely. Do you consume a lot of CBDA? I'm sorry, CBDA. Have you been consuming that?
no, not specifically. Not specifically. I do eat a lot of CBD products, though.
Well, I mean, it's like CBDA is available in very, very, very. It's a lot of it in the leaves. A lot of people, you throw away leaves because you think that that's a byproduct that you don't need. But if you were to juice a lot of the leaves, and a lot of the people who are growers basically don't know what to do with it anyway, so you could probably go over to a couple of your growers and say, "Hey, look, you got some spare leaves before you throw it out. I'll take it." You know what I mean?
Thank you. That's a good tip. I didn't know that.
I'm saying CBDA is very prevalent in the leaves, especially of the hemp plant, but in the sativa plant also. So, before if I go to form a relationship with some of the growers and say, look, I know you're going to get rid of these, so before you get rid of them, I'll take them. You just put it in a baggie. I'll take it. I'll take it home and juice it.
Beautiful. What a great idea. Anything, honestly, anything that would help, Montel. I'm ready to go any route.
Gotcha, gotcha. I know you are a staunch advocate and doing a lot of speaking over around in Canada. Do you travel, or do you do a lot of this via, virtual settings?
I did more traveling when I was younger with LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition in the US. I went back and forth to the US a few times, so I mostly stayed in North America. But again, I had the opportunity to travel around the world. I just never had the health. So I always ended up in the hospital.
Gotcha. Well, in Canada, do they allow for importation from other places, South America, South Africa, or are you just an exports country?
I believe we're just exportation right now. That's all I've come across. So I believe we're just exporting to different countries right now.
And I've had some discussions with some people from Canada who are talking about the quality of the product being grown there right now. Are you still happy with what you can get in Canada?
I get mine from British Columbia again. So I get mine given to me from growers out there who've been doing it a long time, Montel.
Oh
So
yeah, BC's been in the game for quite a long time.
you bet. So, and again, not that Ontario doesn't have fabulous growers, but BC, there tends to be one specific angel who sends me a lot of cannabis every year.
Excellent, excellent. And there is no moratorium against sending it from BC to Ontario to Calgary or anything like that, is there?
Yes, there is.
Well, is there really?
Is. It's illegal, but there's nothing else that we can do, Montel, sadly enough. Nothing else we can do because this grower is not legal and there's nothing all I can do. And when I get a package in the mail is send my love and say thank you because I'm feeling better.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now, does the state produce the psilocybin that you use?
No, actually, they just specifically started to grow it in Guelph, Ontario, here in Canada, just recently. So, and that was the first legal grow psilocybin grow for Canada through Health Canada again. So, and that was last year it started.
And are you able to access that or no? Why
Not
not?
well. Apparently, they're only allowed to give it to the people with the special access licenses, and I don't have a special access license.
What's stopping you from getting one?
Because the special access program doesn't recognize trigeminal neuralgia.
Really?
Yes. So I,
Don't they recognize MS or no?
not in that respect. They don't care. I've been in the courts for again, 25 years with lawyers, again, all pro bono, who are helping me fight this because they too think it's wrong. And right now I have a human rights lawyer in Ottawa who's taken me on, and he's decided that he's going to fight for me either way because he, like you and I, feels trigeminal neuralgia should be recognized.
No ifs, ands, or buts. Chanel, in do you perceive any things happening or changing in the Canadian laws in the next couple of years?
It depends on who's in government, Montel, because right now we have a liberal government on their way out, and the conservative government is not really on board with drug law reform the way people like myself are. So I can't see them actually. British Columbia just recently legalized or decriminalized, pardon me, all drugs for a short period of time, and it didn't work. And British Columbia feels that now they've decided that that's going to be enough, that they've pulled out, they're not going to do this at all. Well, again, the conservative government has decided they're on board with the BC government, in so much so that, again, the drug law reforms issues do not work, and therefore they should all just be kept illegal.
And so will BC then turn back against cannabis or all drugs or what?
I don't think cannabis is the issue, Montel. I think it's just every other substance. So it's anything from, heroin to LSD to psilocybin, any of those things. Anything on the street that you can get, methamphetamines, that sort of thing, they're a problem in British Columbia and the downtown East Lower East Side. So that's, again, where they started this issue of decriminalizing these substances, but they found that the houseless people were taking over the parks. So what we decided, the houseless people,
Got
the
it.
people that had no homes, were taking over the parks and doing their substances and consuming their substances there when they were decriminalized. And what the government finally realized was that, or thought, pardon me, was that, if we stop that, they'll stop and they'll just go away. And what we as activists say is, no, that's not the case. These people are going to consume those substances either way, and they need a safe place to do it. Therefore, they should set up more safe injection sites and safe houses to be able to go to consume these substances.
Right.
Not make them illegal.
Sure. I know that people would want to reach out to you. Where would they go if they wanted to reach out and just chat with you or just get some feedback from you? Where would they go?
I have a website at alisonmyrden.ca, ALISONMYRDEN.ca. I also am on pretty much most social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I can't even think, a number of them, and they're on my website as well, Montel. But thank you.
Absolutely. No. And you've been dealing with this. Alison, just talk to me about how you find the fortitude to deal with this on a daily basis for as long as you have. I mean, this has been a lifelong mission for you.
It has, my friend, but you know what? It's not going to stop me. As I said, I have a little joke that I don't really have MS. I am a mess, and I'll tell you, I really am. And I wish people would laugh with me on Montel.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, laughter seems to definitely be one of those things that's a healer for a lot of folks. I mean, if you wanted there are people out there who are suffering in their own way and think that there's no way out. What would you say to them?
I would say never give up. Never give up. I believe life is worth living. And then again, anything else is a permanent answer to a temporary problem.
Looking back at the earlier part of your life when you were in law enforcement, I mean, are there any things back then that you wish that you could have changed? I mean, I'm sure you had to enforce laws that you were thinking to yourself, how the hell am I doing this? But I got to do it anyway. When you look back, I mean, do you look back with regret or do you look back and say it was just part of the learning process?
You know what? I repented for years on interviews I did around the world, Montel, because I felt guilty for all the young people that I had in jail and that I didn't speak up for them. I felt worse because I didn't do that. And I think that's, again, what's driven me all these years is all those young people. I can remember every name and every face I still remember every single person I had in custody.
Wow, wow, wow. You know, I know that again, this journey has been a hard one for you, and I hope again you medicate as much as you need to while we're talking. Um, you know, I'm just trying to see if there's what would you say again to like these people who are now, taking a stand that oh, these drugs are really bad. We got to turn the laws back. We have to stop. I mean, the sky is not falling the way people think it was going to. What do you say to them? Because I mean, when you start to attack the only thing that is a relief for some, it's almost as if you say we don't give a damn about this portion of our society. I mean, how do you tell those people who are trying to turn against the use of cannabis and the use of other, alternatives? What do you say to them?
I say, walk a mile in our shoes, my friend, because you, like me, know exactly what this is like every day. And again, if my great grandfather could live with it in my case, then I can certainly live with it too. So,
Absolutely. Any final thoughts you want to add, Bundir?
no, I just want to say thank you again. You've done incredible work and you've left the mark for people like me, and you've driven the path and opened the gate so that I can continue my work, my friend. Thank you so much, Montel.
Well, keep on keeping on. Take care of that lovely family of yours. Take care of yourself. And, stay frosty and medicated, my friend. There's no reason to be around the world in pain.
Thank you, my friend. Take care.
Absolutely. Sure. And for again, one more time before we go, give out your stats so people know where to go if they want to reach out to you.
Sure, they can reach out to me at my website, Alison Myrden, ALISONMYRDEN.ca. We're all around the world and back again, Montel.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for everything you've shared with us today. Alison, you stay well. Reach back out to us again in the future. If you ever want to come back on again, we'd love to have you back. And for all of you out there, make sure you stay informed. Stay in this movement. Don't give up. There's a lot more work that needs to be done, and we need people like you doing it. Okay? So join us on the next Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Thanks for joining me on Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear your feedback also, so please send us your comments.